I never thought I'd find myself recounting this story, but here I am, still haunted by the events that unfolded during what was supposed to be a relaxing weekend getaway. It all started when my best friend, Sarah, suggested we take a trip to celebrate my recent promotion. We found a great deal online for a historic hotel in a small town a few hours away, and without much thought, we booked it. As we drove up the winding road leading to the hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The dense forest surrounding us seemed to close in, and the sky darkened prematurely, as if the sun itself was eager to abandon this place. Sarah, ever the optimist, chatted excitedly about the spa treatments we had planned, oblivious to the growing unease in my gut. The hotel itself was a looming Victorian structure, its faded grandeur a testament to better days long past. As we pulled into the nearly empty parking lot, I noticed a figure watching us from a second-floor window. When I blinked, it was gone. "Did you see that?" I asked Sarah, but she was already out of the car, stretching and admiring the architecture. "See what, Jess? Come on, I want to check in and hit the bar before dinner." The lobby was dimly lit and smelled of mothballs and something I couldn't quite place, something old and vaguely unpleasant. The concierge, an elderly man with papery skin and sunken eyes, regarded us with an unsettling intensity as we approached the front desk. "Welcome to the Blackwood Hotel," he intoned, his voice a dry whisper. "We've been expecting you." Sarah giggled nervously. "Oh, I doubt that. We just booked this morning." The old man's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "The Blackwood always knows, my dear. Always." As he handed us our room keys, actual metal keys, not the modern keycards I'd expected, his cold fingers brushed against mine, sending a chill down my spine. "Enjoy your stay," he added, "and do remember, some doors are best left unopened." I wanted to ask what he meant, but Sarah was already tugging me towards the elevator. As the doors closed, I could have sworn I saw the concierge's reflection in the tarnished brass, standing right behind us. But when I turned, we were alone. Our room was on the 4th floor, at the end of a long hallway lined with faded floral wallpaper and flickering sconces. The carpet muffled our footsteps, but each creak of the ancient floorboards beneath seemed to echo ominously. "For 14, Sarah announced, fitting the key into the lock. "Home sweet home for the weekend." The room itself was spacious but outdated, with heavy velvet drapes and a musty odor that no amount of air freshener could disguise. As Sarah busied herself unpacking, I found myself drawn to the window, peering out at the rapidly darkening grounds. "Hey, what's that building over there?" I asked, pointing to a smaller structure partially hidden by overgrown hedges. Sarah joined me at the window, squinting into the gloom. "Looks like an old greenhouse or something. Probably just storage now." "Why?" I shrugged, unable to explain the sense of foreboding that washed over me as I stared at the dilapidated building. "No reason. Just curious." We spent the next hour getting ready for dinner, the initial unease fading as we fell into our usual routines of friendly banter and outfit debates. By the time we made our way down to the hotel's restaurant, I had almost convinced myself that my earlier misgivings were just travel jitters. The dining room was nearly empty, save for an elderly couple in the corner and a solitary man at the bar. As we were led to our table, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The waiter, a young man with a nervous twitch, seemed eager to please but jumpy, his eyes darting around the room as if expecting trouble. "Is everything all right?" I asked as he fumbled with the wine list. "Oh yes, miss," he replied, his forced smile not reaching his eyes. It's just, well, it's a full moon tonight. Strange things tend to happen on nights like these. Before I could press him further, he scurried off to fetch our drinks. Sarah rolled her eyes. Looks like someone's been watching too many horror movies. Though I have to admit, this place does have a certain ambience. As if on cue, the lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. When they came back on, the man at the bar was gone, his half-empty glass the only evidence he'd been there at all. Dinner progressed without further incident, but I couldn't shake my growing unease. The food was excellent, but every bite seemed to stick in my throat. As we finished our meal, a commotion from the lobby caught our attention. I'm telling you, I saw her, a man's voice shouted. My wife! She was right there, plain as day. We exchanged glances and hurried to investigate. In the lobby, a distraught middle-aged man was gesticulating wildly at the impassive concierge. Sir, as I've explained, you're our only guest registered under that name, the concierge said calmly. There is no record of your wife. But we checked in together this afternoon, the man insisted, his voice cracking. Ask her. She was right here. He turned, pointing directly at me. You saw her, didn't you? In the window when you arrived? My blood ran cold as I remembered the figure I'd glimpsed earlier. Before I could respond, Sarah grabbed my arm. I'm sorry, you must be mistaken. We just got here ourselves. Come on, Jess, let's go. As she pulled me towards the elevator, I heard the man's anguished cry. Please, you have to believe me. She's here somewhere. Back in our room, Sarah tried to laugh it off, but I could tell she was shaken. Probably just had too much to drink, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. This place does seem to attract some characters. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Sarah headed to the bathroom to get ready for bed, I found myself drawn once again to the window. The full moon hung low and heavy in the sky, casting long shadows across the grounds. And there, in the overgrown garden, I saw movement. A figure, indistinct in the moonlight, was making its way towards the old greenhouse. Without thinking, I grabbed my room key and slipped out the door. I'll be right back, I called to Sarah. Just need some ice. The hallway seemed longer and darker than before, the shadows deeper, the air thick with unseen presences. As I approached the elevator, I heard a child's laughter echoing from somewhere above. But that was impossible, we were on the top floor. In the lobby, the concierge's desk stood empty. The distraught man from earlier was nowhere to be seen. With a furtive glance around, I slipped out the front door and into the night. The moon's glow seemed to dim as I made my way across the lawn, the wet grass soaking through my shoes. The greenhouse loomed before me, its glass panes reflecting the starlight like 1,000 watching eyes. As I reached for the door, a hand gripped my shoulder. I spun around, a scream catching in my throat. What are you doing out here? It was the waiter from the restaurant, his face pale in the moonlight. You shouldn't be here. It's not safe. I saw someone coming this way, I explained, my heart racing. I thought. He shook his head vehemently. There's nothing here but old memories and bad dreams. Please, go back inside. Before it's too late. A crash from inside the greenhouse made us both jump. The waiter's eyes widened in terror. Run, he whispered. Run now and don't look back." I hesitated for a moment, torn between fear and a morbid curiosity. That's when I heard it, a woman's voice, faint but clear, calling my name from within the decrepit structure. "Jessica," it called. "We've been waiting for you." The waiter tugged at my arm, his voice urgent. "Don't listen. It's a trick. It's always a trick." But I found myself moving towards the door, my hand reaching for the rusted handle. As I pulled it open, the hinges groaning in protest, I caught a glimpse of movement in the shadowy interior. A figure, familiar yet impossible, stepped into view. "Mom?" I whispered, my voice catching. "But you're dead," the figure finished, a cruel smile twisting features I'd once known so well. "Oh, sweetheart. We're all dead here." The waiter's scream jolted me back to reality. I turned to run, but the ground beneath my feet seemed to shift and ripple. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was the hotel, its windows now blazing with an unholy light, 1,000 faces pressed against the glass, their mouths open in silent screams. I awoke to Sarah shaking me, her face etched with concern. Jess, wake up. You were having a nightmare." I sat up, gasping, my heart pounding. The room looked normal, no signs of the horrors I'd just experienced. "It was so real," I mumbled, rubbing my eyes. "The greenhouse, the waiter, my mom." Sarah frowned. "Greenhouse? Jess, what are you talking about? We just got here an hour ago. You fell asleep as soon as we checked in." I stared at her, uncomprehending. "But dinner? The man in the lobby? We've been here for hours." She shook her head, looking increasingly worried. "Maybe you're coming down with something. Look, why don't you rest while I go down and see about getting us some food sent up?" As she left the room, I stumbled to the window, half expecting to see the ominous greenhouse. But the grounds were well manicured and bathed in afternoon sunlight. No trace of the overgrown, moonlit garden from my dream? I sank back onto the bed, my mind reeling. Had it all been a nightmare? It had felt so viscerally real. As I tried to make sense of it all, my gaze fell on the bedside table. There, next to the lamp, lay a single rusted key, a key I'd never seen before. And that's when I heard it, faint but unmistakable, a child's laughter echoing from somewhere above. My hand trembled as I reached for the rusted key, its weight far heavier than its size suggested. The child's laughter faded, replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to press in from all sides. I knew I should wait for Sarah to return, to tell her about this impossible object and the lingering fragments of my dream. But something compelled me to act, a morbid curiosity I couldn't shake. I slipped out of the room, the key clutched tightly in my sweating palm. The hallway stretched before me, somehow longer and darker than I remembered. The faded floral wallpaper seemed to writhe in my peripheral vision, patterns shifting into grotesque faces that vanished when I tried to focus on them. At the end of the hall stood a door I hadn't noticed before, its weathered wood out of place among the more modern fixtures. The rusted key fit perfectly into its lock. "Jess, what are you doing?" I whirled around to find Sarah standing behind me, a look of confusion on her face. I don't know," I admitted. "Something's not right here, Sarah. I can feel it." She frowned, reaching out to touch my arm. "You're burning up. Come on, let's get you back to bed." I'll call a doctor. But as her fingers brushed my skin, a chill ran through me. Her touch felt wrong somehow, too cold, too empty. I stumbled back, bumping into the door. It swung open with a low groan. Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Now look what you've done," she said, her voice distorting, deepening. "You've opened the door. They don't like it when you open doors that should stay closed." I didn't wait to see what they were. I plunged through the doorway, finding myself on a narrow, winding staircase. The door slammed shut behind me, cutting off Sarah's, or whatever it was, inhuman shriek. The stairs seemed to go on forever, spiraling down into darkness. The only illumination came from sickly green flames that flickered in sconces along the wall, casting monstrous shadows that danced and leered. I descended as quickly as I dared, the stairs creaking ominously beneath my feet. After what felt like hours, I emerged into a vast, circular chamber. Hundreds of candles burned around its perimeter, their light revealing rows upon rows of mirrors of all shapes and sizes. In the center of the room stood a solitary figure, the elderly concierge. "Ah, Miss Jessica," he said, his voice echoing unnaturally. "We've been expecting you." "What is this place?" I demanded, trying to keep the fear from my voice. "What's happening?" The old man's smile was cold and empty. "This, my dear, is the heart of the Blackwood. The nexus where realities bleed together, where the barriers between worlds grow thin." As he spoke, the mirrors around us began to ripple like water. In their surfaces, I saw countless versions of myself, some familiar, others twisted and wrong. In one, I was a child again, cowering from an unseen threat. In another, I was ancient and withered, eyes gleaming with malevolent knowledge. "You see," the concierge continued, "the Blackwood exists in many places, many times, all at once. And you, Jessica, you're special. You can perceive it all, move between the layers of reality. A rare gift and a terrible curse." A scream tore through the chamber, my own voice, but not from my lips. One of the mirror selves was pounding against the glass, her face contorted in terror. "Help me," she shrieked. "Don't let them take me." Shadowy hands emerged from the mirror's surface, dragging her back into whatever nightmare realm lay beyond. I stumbled away, only to bump into another mirror. This one showed Sarah, the real Sarah, frantically shaking my unconscious body in our hotel room. "Wake up, Jess," her voice echoed faintly. "Please, wake up." "Ah yes, your friend," the concierge said, his tone almost pitying. "She's quite worried about you. You've been absent for quite some time in her reality." "How do I get back?" I asked, desperation clawing at my throat. The old man's eyes gleamed. "That's the question, isn't it? But are you sure that's what you want? There's so much power here, so much knowledge. You could learn to control it, to shape reality itself." As he spoke, the images in the mirrors shifted again. I saw myself in countless possible futures, wealthy, powerful, ageless. But in each reflection, my eyes held the same hollow, haunted look. "No," I said, backing away. "This isn't real. None of this is real." The concierge's face twisted in anger. "Foolish girl. This is more real than anything you've ever known." The candles flared, their flames stretching to the ceiling. The mirrors began to shatter one by one, releasing a cacophony of screams and inhuman howls. Reality itself seemed to fracture around me. In desperation, I closed my eyes and focused on Sarah's voice, still calling faintly from that one unbroken mirror. I thought of our friendship, of the simple weekend getaway we'd planned, of the life I wanted to return to. The chaos around me reached a fever pitch, and then, silence. I opened my eyes to find Sarah leaning over me, tears streaming down her face. "Jess. Oh, thank God, you're awake." I sat up slowly, my head pounding. The hotel room looked normal, no sign of the horrors I'd experienced. How long was I out? Sarah's face was pale with worry. "Almost 2 days. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong. You just wouldn't wake up." 2 days. It had felt like an eternity in that other place. I shuddered, the memories already growing hazy like a half-remembered nightmare. "I had the strangest dream," I began, but the words died in my throat as I caught sight of something in the mirror across the room. For just a moment, I saw the old concierge standing behind me, his withered lips curled in a knowing smile. Then he was gone, leaving only my own haunted reflection. Sarah followed my gaze, frowning. "Jess. What is it?" I forced a smile, pushing down the lingering dread. "Nothing. Just tired, I guess. Can we go home?" As we packed our bags and checked out, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The world looked the same, but it felt thinner somehow, as if reality itself might tear at any moment. In the lobby, a different concierge, young, cheerful, bid us farewell. But as we walked to the car, I heard a familiar, dry whisper on the wind, "Until next time, Jessica. The doors are always open for you now." I shivered and hurried to the car, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But as we drove away, I couldn't help glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the Blackwood Hotel shimmer and change, revealing its true, terrible nature. The rational part of my mind insisted it had all been a vivid hallucination brought on by stress or illness. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had glimpsed something beyond the veil of ordinary reality, and it had glimpsed me in return. Now, months later, I still wake in the night, drenched in sweat, the echo of ethereal laughter ringing in my ears. Sometimes, in crowds or quiet moments alone, I catch fleeting reflections of other lives, other possibilities. The barriers between worlds remain thin for me, a constant reminder of the vast, terrifying unknown that lies just beyond our perception. I haven't told Sarah the full truth of what happened. How could I? She'd never believe me, and I feared the telling might somehow make it more real, might open those doors even wider. But I know I can't run from it forever. Sooner or later, the Blackwood, or something like it, will call to me again. And next time, I might not find my way back so easily. For now, I cling to the familiar rhythms of everyday life, to the solid, comforting presence of friends and family. But always, in the back of my mind, I hear the concierge's parting words, "The doors are always open for you now." And I wonder, with a mix of dread and terrible curiosity, what horrors and wonders lie waiting on the other side.